The scent of Mom's meatloaf couldn't sweeten the bitter tension tonight. Ethan, golden boy supreme, prepped his final fake pitch, oblivious. He didn't see me, the underestimated sister, holding the evidence to expose him. The recording waited. You'll want to see this. Hit subscribe and ring that notification bell so you can be here to watch me take him down. He just needed one more moment in the spotlight before I brought his lies crashing down. At 32, I, Miley, knew the suffocating atmosphere of my parents' Midwest kitchen all too well, especially on afternoons like this. Mom traced frantic patterns on the tired linoleum, her anxiety a palpable hum in the room, while Dad was a study in defeat in his usual chair, shoulders slumped under an invisible, crushing weight, his head buried deep in his hands. The cause of their current despair lay crumpled between them on the worn Formica table. A foreclosure notice. Its stark red letters seemed to scream an impossible sum, $25,000. Mom voiced the number, her tone thin and brittle. Where on earth are we supposed to find that kind of money in only 2 weeks? The question resonated in the stale air, unanswered. I took a slow, centering breath. I'd built a thriving digital marketing agency, a world away from their constant financial struggles, yet they'd never shown real interest, never truly grasped what I did. That familiar pang of being underestimated surfaced, even now. Pushing it aside, I stepped forward and smoothed the harsh creases from the damning paper. I can help, I said, my voice steady in the charged silence. Both heads snapped up, surprise instantly warring with a flicker of what looked painfully like shame in their weary eyes. Miley, Dad started, the ingrained instinct to refuse already shaping his words. We couldn't possibly ask. You're not asking. I cut in gently but firmly, meeting his gaze. I'm offering. My offer hung in the air, thick with unspoken history. The only sound punctuating the stunned silence was the persistent drip, drip, drip from the leaky kitchen faucet. A small, chronic problem mirroring the larger crisis. Another repair endlessly postponed due to lack of funds. Their faces, etched with worry lines just moments before, now held a mixture of shock and dawning comprehension. I didn't wait for the awkward dance of pride or hesitant acceptance. Pulling out my phone, the banking app opened to a screen I'd prepared the minute I saw the notice crumpled on their table. $25,000. Ready to go? I held it out slightly. I can send it right now. Mom's eyes widened, disbelief etched clearly. Miley, how? How do you possibly have that kind of money? She breathed, the question laced with years of unintentional dismissal. I told you my digital marketing agency was doing well, I replied softly, keeping my tone even despite the familiar sting. They'd offered vague nods, empty encouragement, never truly wanting the details, always more focused on Ethan, the lauded son making waves at that Chicago hedge fund, the son who wasn't here now. Dad straightened, clearing his throat. We'll pay you back, Miley, of course, every cent. No need, I stated firmly, my thumb decisively tapping confirm transfer. Consider it a gift. The soft chime of the notification seemed unnaturally loud, sealing the transaction. $25,000, a sum they never imagined I could possess, let alone give away, flowed digitally from my world into theirs. Relief washed over Mom's features, a fragile softening around her eyes that I hadn't seen in months. Tears welled as she managed a choked whisper. Miley, I don't know what to say. In that brief, unguarded moment, seeing her vulnerability cracked something open in me too. I stood up, the words tumbling out before I could censor them, fueled by years of quiet resentment. "Just promise me one thing," I pleaded, my voice tighter than I intended. "Promise you'll try. Try to stop comparing me to Ethan all the time. Stop acting like my success, my life, is somehow second best just because it isn't his." The shift was instantaneous, brutal. The gratitude vanished, replaced by a familiar, icy defensiveness that snapped into place like a shield. "How dare you?" she hissed, her voice dropping dangerously low before rising. "You dangle this money in front of us, play the savior, and then immediately twist it into this, to make us feel guilty. Your brother would never leverage his success like this." The accusation hit me like a physical blow. "Mom, that's not fair. I just saved your home." "And now you're holding it over our heads," she shot back, trembling, her face contorting with sudden, shocking fury. "It just confirms everything I've suspected. You've always been eaten up with jealousy over Ethan." Dad murmured a weak, "Margaret," completely ignored. "Get out!" she finally screamed, stabbing a finger towards the door. "Get out and take your bitter judgment with you. We don't need your money." I stood frozen, the floor seeming to drop away beneath me. I stood frozen on the porch, the harsh reality sinking in with the slam of the front door rattling the windows behind me. Mom's muffled sobs and Dad's futile attempts to calm her seeped through the wood. I'd just handed over $25,000, enough to save their home, and this was the thanks, banished, accused, dismissed yet again. "Mom, please," I started weakly towards the door, but her muffled voice shot back. "And take your money with you. We'll find another way." "The transfer's already done," I called back quietly, turning away from the house I grew up in. "The mortgage is due in 2 weeks. Don't let your pride cost you your home." The door remained shut. As I walked numbly towards my car, my phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. "Heard Mom and Dad are having money troubles. You should help them out since you live closer." I let out a short, bitter laugh. Of course he'd heard. He always heard about the problems, just never lifted a finger to actually solve them. Another buzz as I started the engine. "By the way, can you spot me $7,500? Huge investment opportunity came up. I switched the phone off without responding, pulling away from the curb. What they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that their precarious mortgage wasn't the only family financial disaster I was intimately familiar with. I'd been watching, listening, gathering data for years about Dad's failed business ventures, about Ethan's endless opportunities. Being the forgotten child, the underestimated one, it meant I saw everything. Phase 1 was complete, albeit messily. Now, it was time for Phase 2. 2 weeks passed in a heavy silence from my parents' house, a void punctuated only by the escalating desperation in Ethan's texts pleading for loans. The expected call finally came from Ms. Davis at the bank, her tone professionally crisp. "Ms. Walker, there's been another series of failed attempts to access your accounts using security verification questions." I allowed myself a grim smile. "My brother, I presume? Mom's maiden name and my childhood dog?" "Correct on both, and both failed," she confirmed. "Shall I proceed with flagging these as fraudulent?" "Not just yet, Ms. Davis," I replied coolly, feeling a cold certainty solidify within me. Let's see how deep he's willing to dig. Disconnecting, I opened the meticulously detailed spreadsheet. Years of painstaking documentation, tracking every dollar Ethan had charmed or bullied out of our family. Aunt Carol's retirement fund decimated. Uncle Ben's business sold off. Cousin David's children's college dreams deferred indefinitely. The total bled across the screen. Over $450,000. Right on schedule, Agent Miller from the FBI was ushered in. "Ms. Walker," he stated, placing his briefcase down, "your documentation is more than comprehensive. It's damning. It confirms our independent findings. This isn't just family loans gone bad. Your brother's running a classic Ponzi scheme." "I know," I affirmed quietly. He leaned forward slightly. "The question is, why wait so long to bring this forward?" As if on cue, my phone vibrated. A text from Dad. "Mortgage payment due next week, assuming you're handling it." I slid the phone across the desk to Miller. Before he could fully absorb the casual entitlement, another notification flashed. Flight confirmation. Ethan Walker. One way to the Bahamas, departing next Wednesday. The final piece clicked into place. Agent Miller absorbed the text message, then Ethan's flight itinerary, a cold understanding dawning in his eyes. He's prepping his exit strategy. Precisely, I confirmed, which is why the takedown needs to wait until after Monday. Miller nodded slowly. Because Monday, I explained, the words tasting like ash, is the obligatory monthly family dinner. It's his stage, where he unveils the latest sure thing and passes the hat. He needs to make his final pitch first. Monday evening descended with a sense of choreographed dread. As I pulled up to my parents' house, the offensively shiny new SUV parked brazenly in the driveway seemed to mock the home's faded paint. Down the block, the FBI surveillance van blended into the suburban twilight, a silent, watchful presence promising an end to the charade. Mom swung the door open before I could knock, her smile wide but failing to reach her eyes. "Miley! Wonderful! Ethan has the most amazing news!" The familiar aroma of her famous meatloaf, the scent that always preceded one of Ethan's fundraising speeches, filled the air, now smelling cloyingly sweet, tainted by the years of manipulation it heralded. Dad offered a tired smile from his chair, his hope painfully misplaced, and Ethan held court, resplendent in a suit that screamed borrowed money, radiating a practiced, predatory charm. "Miley, sis!" he boomed. "Glad you made it. Brought the checkbook, right?" "Wouldn't miss it, Ethan," I replied evenly, my hand resting near the checkbook and the tiny recorder nestled within my bag. "Atta girl," Dad murmured, a conditioned reflex. Dinner unfolded like a painfully familiar stage play, building towards the inevitable monologue. Ethan leaned back, savoring the anticipation he'd manufactured. "All right, family," he announced, his voice resonating with practiced confidence. "Gather around. I've landed something huge, an investment that's not just good, it's life-changing." He lowered his voice conspiratorially, his eyes gleaming. "Guaranteed 40% return, in 3 months. Oh, Ethan!" "That's marvelous," Mom breathed, already hooked, her earlier anger forgotten. Dad nodded eagerly. "Impressive," I interjected, keeping my voice deliberately calm, a counterpoint to the rising tide of false hope. "Tell us more about how it works." He waved a dismissive hand, launching into his well-rehearsed evasions. Exclusive access, proprietary algorithms, too complex for layman terms. "Bottom line," he concluded, flashing a brilliant smile, "we need capital to lock it in. $75,000 should do it. Steep entry, yes, but the returns." "We could remortgage again," Dad murmured, already calculating. "Or," I cut in sharply, the single word silencing the room, "we could ask some questions." Ethan's smile faltered. "Miley, please, trust me." "Trust," I echoed softly, meeting his gaze. Like Aunt Carol trusted you with her retirement? Like Uncle Ben trusted you before he lost his business? Like Cousin David trusted you before his kid's college fund evaporated? The names hung in the air like accusations. What are you suggesting? Mom whispered, horrified. Instead of answering, I slid the flight confirmation across the table. Maybe this investment is in the Bahamas. One way? His face turned ashen. And finally, I said, my hand steady as I pressed play on my phone, unleashing his own voice from 5 years ago into the suffocating silence. Of course, it's a Ponzi scheme. Ethan's recorded voice hung in the air, damning and irrefutable. Mom's hand flew to her mouth, a strangled gasp escaping. Dad seemed to shrink, aging a decade in mere seconds. You recorded me? Ethan snarled, lunging across the table towards my phone, his suave facade finally shattering. But before he could reach it, the front door burst open. Agent Miller strode in, flanked by FBI agents, badges prominently displayed. Ethan Walker, Miller announced, his voice cutting through the chaos. You are under arrest for operating a fraudulent investment scheme, wire fraud, and multiple counts of financial elder abuse. No! Mom shrieked, trying futilely to block the agent's path. There must be some mistake. He wouldn't— The only mistake, Mom, I said quietly, the words heavy but clear, was enabling him for so long, watching him drain this family dry while we all pretended everything was fine. As agents efficiently handcuffed a stunned Ethan, Dad turned to me, tears streaming down his face. Miley? Why? Why didn't you tell us sooner? My gaze swept the room, the peeling wallpaper, the lingering scent of meatloaf and lies. Would you have believed me? I asked softly. Over him? Every mortgage, every loan, every time you handed him money despite the red flags. I tried to warn you. You never listened. We listened, Mom protested weakly. No, I corrected gently. You demanded. You expected. You never truly listened. I picked up my bag. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., my office. I'm meeting with everyone Ethan scammed. You're welcome to come. Learn the full truth. Miley, please. Dad reached out. We need you. No, I said, pulling back slightly. You needed me 2 weeks ago. Now you need to face reality. I'll keep paying the mortgage. The house shouldn't suffer for his crimes. But don't expect anything else until you understand. The next afternoon, my office conference room filled with the faces of Ethan's victims, their expressions ranging from stunned disbelief to simmering rage as the full scope of his deception unfolded. Aunt Carol wept openly for her lost retirement. Uncle Ben's anger vibrated through the room as he recounted selling his business. Cousin David spoke hollowly about his children's dashed college hopes. My parents sat silently in the back, observing the devastation their golden child had wrought, truly seeing it for the first time. When the meeting finally concluded, drained and heavy, Mom approached my desk, Dad trailing behind her. We were wrong, Miley, she said, the words simple, stripped of pretense. About everything. She placed my old set of house keys on the desk between us, the ones I'd handed back 2 weeks prior. Come home. I looked at the keys, then met her gaze, holding up my own office key. I am home, Mom. Here, in the life I built while you were praising Ethan's lies. We can change, Dad added, his voice thick with emotion. Then prove it, I replied, handing them a prepared folder. Here's a repayment plan for everyone Ethan hurt. Start there. Show me you understand the difference between flash and substance. 3 months later, they were sticking to the plan, attending financial counseling, and had put the house up for sale, finally downsizing. Ethan took a plea deal, facing years behind bars. And slowly, tentatively, my parents started seeing me, asking about my agency, finally grasping what real success looked like. If my family's painful reckoning serves any broader purpose, I hope it's as a stark reminder of how easily favoritism can blind us, how enabling destructive behavior, even unintentionally, can unravel everything. I lived through the fallout. The success my parents chased in my brother was a dangerous mirage. The real value, the quiet strength built on integrity and actual work, my work, was constantly overlooked until it was almost too late. What this ordeal carved into me is this: look deeper than the shiny promises and smooth talk. True success is built brick by brick, not borrowed or faked. Financial vigilance is non-negotiable, especially when blurred by family ties. Silence is a form of complicity. Finding the courage to speak the truth, even when it shatters illusions, is vital. And perhaps most crucially, you must define your own worth and your own path, independent of anyone else's flawed perspective or approval. Sometimes the most loving act isn't blind support, but the difficult intervention that forces a necessary, painful change. Does any of this echo your own experiences? What hard-won lessons resonate with you? Please share your insights in the comments below. If my journey struck a chord, liking, sharing, and subscribing helps keep these important, sometimes difficult, conversations going. Let's connect.